This is an image of Navy Captain Bruce McCandless making the first untethered spacewalk in history using the Manned Maneuvering Unit on a Challenger space shuttle mission in February 1984. This looks like a NASA photo, but it isn't. It's a painting done by my dear friend, Craig Kodera. Sadly, Craig passed away on March 24th, 2021, after a year-long battle with cancer. We are now going to pay tribute to his career and his life on Celebrating Aviation with Mike Mashat. This story begins on April 18th, 1942, when General Jimmy Doolittle led the raid against Tokyo, Japan in World War II, taking off in a B-25 from the USS Hornet. In this painting by Craig, we see the ruptured duck leaving the deck. And in this painting by Craig, we see his uncle, Colonel Jack Hilger, second in command on the Doolittle raid. Uncle Jack was a big inspiration to Craig and fostered his aviation career. Craig was born on May 17th, 1956 in Riverside, California, and inspired by his uncle's career and his father's career in aerospace, he sought a life in aviation. This is his Halloween outfit built by his dad at age 3, a harbinger of things to come. Inspired by his father's career, there were many wonderful, joyous hours of model building, reading aviation magazines, watching aviation movies, and of course, building models. And for Craig, it was models of the 1960s. These were big steps in his career path. For me, my model era was a decade earlier, but Craig always dreamt of being a pilot for American Airlines. He attended UCLA and was enrolled in the Air Force ROTC program on his way to becoming an Air Force pilot. In the summer of 1978, he was brought aboard in the presentations department as a summer hire. I was returning from the Oshkosh Air Show, and I met a young, tall, slim, energetic Craig Kodera. A rite of passage for the newbies in the department was something we called the Name the Plane contest. It was 50 airplane silhouettes like you see here. And the idea was to see who could name all 50 airplanes, kind of separated the men from the boys, as we say. Now, the obvious ones like the B-52 or the SR-71, those are kind of easy. But can you tell the difference between a Convair 580, a Hawker Siddeley 748, or a Japanese YS-11? Craig not only identified these three, he nailed all 50 airplanes. And then he said, I paint too. I went, okay, fine. Show me what you got, kid. And I was astonished. His artwork was spectacular. He soon enrolled in the Air Force pilot training program at Reese Air Force Base in Texas. And he soloed in the Cessna T-37. This is an actual photo of Craig on his first jet solo, taken by his instructor in an accompanying Air Force jet. He then graduated to the supersonic Northrop T-38 Talon and was then assigned to the Air Force Reserve Squadron at March Air Force Base back at Riverside, California, flying the Lockheed HC-130H air rescue version of the Lockheed Hercules. I actually flew with him aboard on an Air Force ART mission, which he had coordinated. And it was quite a spectacular mission. We orbited over Catalina Island and did all sorts of simulated air rescue work. It was really just an outstanding experience. He then moved up to the McDonnell Douglas KC-10 extender. I did this card for him, one of many collaborations that we did together. We'll talk about that in a moment. Here's a picture of his airplane. Now, this is unique. I did the painting of the airplane. Craig did the background. This was a piece celebrating the 40th anniversary of the 15th Air Force, showing the base and the first airplane of the unit the consolidated B-24 Liberator, and the latest airplane, the KC-10. In 1983, the National Air and Space Museum sponsored an art contest. Craig entered 3 pieces, a China Clipper, a Twin Beach over the snow-capped Sierra, and just as a little tossed fun project, he did this, I think it was a 9x12, very small canvas, called Scaring the Cows, of the 2 Navy Boeing F-4Bs flying along in the Merino Valley. And it was just a little project he did for fun. Well, this painting took 2nd place in the contest, and it was chosen for the Greenwich Workshop poster commemorating the event. This launched Craig's career in aviation art, and his breakout hit for Greenwich was a piece called the A-Team. It was a self-portrait. At age 28, he became an aircraft commander on the KC-10, and this is the A-Team of Air Force Reserve, a F-16 unit out of Hill, being refueled by his KC-10 extender. Pretty spectacular piece. I'm often asked what's the most difficult airplane to portray in aviation art, and to me, without a doubt, it's the Douglas DC-3. It's got all sorts of very complicated contours and curves and very complicated structure. It's a tough airplane to do correctly, and Craig nailed it. In 1986, at age 30, he was hired by Air California, and his dream of becoming an airline pilot came true. Well, guess what airline acquired Air California in a merger? American, and Craig became a pilot for American Airlines. Inspired by his dad's career at Douglas, his favorite airplane was the DC-9 Super 80, and he became a co-pilot, first officer for American on the Super 80, acquiring more than 5,000 logged flight hours. As he and I used to say, he could make that airplane talk. And what about those models? Well, let's go back to 1955. Craig discovered the early Revell stuff and just fell in love with it, and that launched a hobby and a career in acquiring vintage model aircraft kits. He would build these models. Notice the pilot waving out of the window, pretty cool. And this is the monogram TWA Connie, which he also built. And these are called out of the box, but he really did a beautiful job. We both loved airliners dearly. And he eventually acquired one of the premier, if not the premier model collection of vintage kits in the United States. In 2001, I acquired the magazine Wings and Air Power, and I needed a cover. My dear friend Dennis Jenkins had done a spectacular article on the North American F-108, and I called Craig and I said, look, what can we do? I need an F-108 on the cover. And he said, well, put it in Edwards flight test markings. I went, perfect, that's it. Give me a low sun, high altitude. I needed going up at a diagonal to the right because we're going to drop in the type, and this is what arrived. There's the cover, and it was the top selling issue of all 62 issues that I did of the magazine. Here's another collaboration. This was the 100th anniversary of flight, December 2003. I did the Wright brothers and Chuck Yeager. Craig did Lindbergh and Neil Armstrong. Look at this beautiful cover, Foundation magazine, a naval aviation publication. The V-22 Osprey, just spectacular. And then there were the books. Craig and myself, along with our dear friend John Proctor, the Dean of Writing on Commercial Aviation, co-produced the book From Props to Jets for Specialty Press. The book sold out in less than a year. It was just a wonderful project. And then Craig had his first solo project as an author with collecting vintage plastic model airplane kits, also done for specialty. This was a gift to the model collecting universe, kind of the Bible for this topic. And his latest book was America's Round Engine Airliners, which he co-wrote with William Pierce, the story of all the radial engine powered classic aircraft. This book is available in a special promotion, which you can find in the title block link below. And speaking of collaborations, this is one of my favorites. It's Navy Captain Bob Elder bringing the North American P-51 Seahorse, as it was renamed, during carrier suitability trials with the USS Shangri-La in 1946. I designed this piece, and I took the drawing all the way up to the final engineering image, which is used to transfer to the canvas, and Craig finished it in color. And what can you say about a Navy flight career that begins in World War II and ends with the F-18 Hornet? And that was Captain Elder's career, test pilot for Northrop. Craig and I both loved Jimmy Stewart. Our favorite movie was Strategic Air Command, so of course he had to paint the B-47. He also did a number of retirement paintings where he would depict formations or groupings of aircraft or ships representing the careers of servicemen or airline pilots. Painting history of Greenwich Peace called Only One Survived, the Grumman Avengers at the Battle of Midway in June of 1942. And Flights of Fancy, a Northrop experimental flying wing concept, which Craig painted for our mutual friend Tony Chong, former historian for Northrop Grumman. And those airliners, my gosh. This is called Canyon Starliner, TWA Constellation. Craig was also adept at portraiture. We have a number of portraits. This was a book cover for a children's book about Admiral Chester Nimitz. And being fascinated with Doolittle from his uncle's career, he did a series of airplanes. This is Jimmy Doolittle's first air race in the Schneider Cup Curtiss. And one of my all-time favorite paintings, Doolittle making the first blind flight on instruments. He's under the hood there in the rear cockpit out of Mitchell Field, Long Island. And what is so spectacular to me about this painting is I flew from an airport called Zons, which was 10 miles east of this location. And I made a flight at sunrise. And I looked at this image when he sent it, and I just got the chills because this is exactly what it looked like and felt like. Oh, that F-108, well, Craig and I used to try and outdo each other for Christmases and birthdays. So a few Christmases ago, I gave him his first model box top. Would have been a beautiful kid for Revell, don't you think? Craig's story is a beautiful one. It basically says dreams do come true. And one of his very last paintings was the Cessna Citation 10. And to me, this airplane is now flying west. Thank you for watching this episode.